On folio 23 verso, Fiore begins showing us the 12 guards of the sword in two hands, which begin with tutta porta di ferro, or the whole iron door. Now, in this video, I will show you each guard. I will show you basically how it's framed and a couple of things you can do from it, but there is an entire course worth of material of stuff just looking at the text around each of these guards, and it would take forever to go through every possibility. So we're going to keep it simple, and I'll show you how to frame the position. And it's worth remembering that we know from reading Vigiani, his Lo Schermo from 1575, that it's axiomatic that between two blows lies a guard, and between two guards lies a blow. In other words, the blows create the guards, and as you move through the 7 or 11 blows that we saw in the previous video, you will see that the guards sort of create themselves. Now, the first of these guards is tutta porta di ferro, which is shown like so. So the weight is on the front foot, the sword is sticking out to the side, and it's nice and comfortable. You will normally create tutta porta di ferro with a reverso. Okay? And from here, you can thrust, you can pass with a cover, you can strike in all sorts of ways. Very handy. As a left-hander, you would hold it this way around, and again, you would create it with a reversal. And you can do all the same things as a left-hander as you can as a right-hander. Next, we have posta di donna destra, the guard of the woman on the right, which is shown held all the way back. From here, you can obviously make a very threatening, powerful blow. But you can also do all sorts of other things. Fiore says that posta di donna can make all 7 blows of the sword. So, for example, you can cut a mezzano. You could even cut a sottano if you really wanted to. Yeah, and of course, you can thrust. As a left-hander, the equivalent guard would be held on the left shoulder, so it would actually be posta di donna sinistra, but to keep the forehand backhand thing consistent, it's best if you change sides. And from here, you can strike these nice big blows. And of course, you can thrust, etc., just like a right-hander, just on the other side. Next up, we have posta di finestra, the window guard, where I generally interpret it to mean my opponent's over there, so I'm facing this way, because it keeps my point sort of between me and them, and I can easily close the line and strike with an exchange, for example, because Fiore does say that posta di finestra is mistress of covers and strikes and knows well the break and the exchange. So from finestra, you can exchange against a thrust, you can break a thrust, and I'm fudging my footwork a little bit to stay in shot. And of course, you can simply thrust or cut. And you will generally create finestra if you're creating it with a blow, with a rising blow from the backhand side. And again, as a left-hander, all the same things are true. In this section of the manuscript, Fiore doesn't show us finestra on the left, but he does show us finestra on the left with the poleaxe. And he has already said in the treatise so far that all guards can do a mezza volta. In other words, they can play on the other side with the pass. So your finestra on one side can become finestra on the other. You just have to do a passing step. We can also see from the poleaxe section that finestra can be held with the weight forward. As a left-hander, finestra can do all the things it can do for a right-hander, of course. There's no real difference. The last guard, shown on folio 23 verso, is posta di donna la sinistra. So, as a right-hander, holding posta di donna framed on my left side to strike a reversal blow. Incidentally, that's a great way to create tutta porta di ferro. It's my view that everything he says about the posta di donna on the right is also true on the left. And so it can do all sorts of things. It can break the thrust, it can cover, it can strike, it can do all these things. As a left-hander, again, this would be posta di donna destra on the right, but for the sake of keeping the madritto reverso forehand backhand issues consistent, you need to be able to take this guard this way. And of course, you can take it forward weighted too. Turning the page to folio 24 recto, we have posta longa, which is shown left foot forward here, and it's extended. And you can take it, of course, with either foot forward, and it is generally held to be the end point of a blow that is stopping in the middle, and the midpoint of a blow that's going all the way through. So if you were to go from posta di donna through posta longa into dente di cinghiaro, which we'll see in a minute, or from posta di donna on the left through posta longa into tutta porta di ferro, there you have posta longa as the midpoint of the guard. Most critically, he says that posta longa goes tasting the guards, which means your opponent is standing in guard, you're not sure what they're going to do, their sword is not available for you to control, so you send a posta longa towards them to force them out of their guard and see what they will do, and that hopefully gives you an opportunity to get physical control over their weapon so you can safely enter and strike. And of course, as a left-hander, it's the same. Next up, we have posta di porta di ferro la mezzana, the position of the iron door in the middle. We've had tutta porta di ferro, the whole iron door. This is now in the middle, literally midline of the body. And from here, of course, the most obvious thing to do is thrust, but you can also beat any incoming weapon upwards and strike, which we see in various places. And as a left-hander, and of course you can beat anything up and strike, or you can thrust. So next up we have posta breve, the short guard, which if you're already in porta di ferro la mezzana, just pick the point up and there you are. And he says you move and see if you can enter in with a thrust against the companion. And it's better in armour than without. From here, of course, it's easy to send in a thrust. It is much less easy to do a solid parry, but it can be done. I mean, you would never take a guard that you couldn't parry from. As a left-hander, of course, it's the same. Eighth guard, and the final one on folio 24 recto, is posta di dente di cinghiaro, the position of the wild boar's tooth. And it is here, with the hand against the left hip and the point out of line. And it is perfect for parrying from. At the end of the Zogostrato section, before we get to the place of the sword in armour, we have a kind of summary where you're standing in dente di cinghiaro against three people who are about to throw stuff at you and attack you with various things, and you're like, ha, I have it. My dente di cinghiaro will cover all of this, no problem. So it's a very good defensive guard, but he also says that you can advance the front foot and thrust and return with a cut. So it's a very nasty position. It's difficult to see where the sword is, particularly if it's sharp, and there's the thrust, and it's, oh, scary. So We parry from here. We thrust from here, with or without a pass, with or without an accrescere. And it is, of course, also the end position of a complete mandrillo fendente. As a left-hander, it's held on the right hip with the sword held out of line. And again, all the things still apply. You can thrust with it, you can return with a fendente, you can enter with a pass, you can parry and strike, you can parry and enter. It's beautiful. And here it is. And of course, it is created by a mandrillo fendente for a left-hander, which is coming from their left side. So, turning the page to folio 24 verso, we have colla longa, the long tail, and it is shown like so. And of course, it can be created with a very enthusiastic reversal fendente. And from here, you can enter with a thrust. You can strike a fendente, and you can cover and enter. It's a very versatile guard. It's basically pretty much everything you can do from to the Porta di Ferro, but the sword is held further back, which means it takes more time to get to the center, but when you get there, you're moving faster, and therefore hitting harder. As a left-hander, colla longa is held here, and again created by a nice enthusiastic reversal, and from here you can do all the things. The next guard, which is the 10th that Fiore shows us, is the one with the biggest variety of interpretation out there in the Fiore community. People have all sorts of theories about it. Mine is relatively simple. This is called Bicorno, or the two-horned guard, and in posta longa we are holding the sword in such a way that we are supporting the true edge and the point, primarily. In Bicorno, as he says, it stands so closed that the point always stays in the middle of the way, which means you close up the elbows and rotate the sword hand on the grip and the pommel hand around also. And what you end up with is a mechanical support of the flat of the sword rather than the edge. And what that means is it's very easy and quick to make feints with, so you can feint with it and avoid very easily because there's no support there. But if somebody tries to, for example, exchange your thrust, they will literally have to bend the point of your sword out of the way. It is rock solid. You can't just push it to the side the way you normally can. Of course, I include a full sort of practical demonstration of all of this in the longsword course, and I refer to it in detail. There's a multi-page article on this From Medieval Manuscript to Modern Practice, the Longsword Techniques of Fiore de Liberi. So, refer to that if you want more detail. How you frame the guard, quite simply, if you're in posta longa, you curl your elbows in and let the grip of the sword stay. The sword stays exactly where it is, but your hands rotate slightly around the grip, and that gives you this closed up, very stable in the flat position. And I like to get there all sorts of ways, but for example, if I'm feinting at you with a bicorno, avoiding your parry is very easy. In I go. You can also, of course, do this from the left. There's bicorno. In we go. As a left-hander, exactly the same. There is posta longa, close it up, and you get bicorno. And all the same rules apply. Next up, we have posta frontale, the frontal guard, which Fiore says some masters call the crown guard. So posta frontale dita corona, frontal guard called the crown. And it's here. So the sword is pointing up. It's a position you see, for example, in the plays of the first master of the Zogolargo, where you're across at the tips of the sword, where this is used often to parry. And striking from here is very easy. So if I was into the Porta di Ferro, I might parry upwards into frontale and then strike. So it could be thought of as the end of a true edge sottano coming from the right, if it's a half blow rather than a full blow, for instance. You can get into it from the left, and most critically, in practice, you can parry with either edge of the sword. So it's very common that we'll parry from one side. It's a feint, so the strike comes in on the other side, so you simply parry it like so. There's no need to turn the hands. So you can parry from the right, parry from the left, do what you want. And parry from the right, parry from the left, strike. And from here, of course, you can pass backwards with the front foot and return with the fendente into the boar's tooth. Now, because of Fiore specifies boar's tooth, that actually suggests that frontale in that case is being held somewhat over to the right, because then there's a more natural entry over to the left. But in any case, there's frontale, striker fendente passing backwards. You can also thrust, Fiore says. One thing I like to do from here is to parry with frontale and then drop the sword over the arms with posta longa and thrust with bicorno. Gives you a nice little exercise for those three extended guards. Frontale, longa, bicorno. As a left-hander, frontale is here. You can parry either side. And of course, you can do all the things that Fiore says you do as a right-hander. It's kind of obvious that this final guard is thrown in to make up a nice round 12, because we have a different set of 12 guards in the different treatises. This is all coming from the Getty manuscript, of course. The Sanidossi manuscript is slightly different. So, this final guard is post dei denti cinghiaro, the position of the wild boar's tooth, but la mezzana, the middle one. And if you turn to a rear-weighted guard, leaving the sword where it is, it goes from being on your left to being in the middle. So as you strike into denti cinghiaro, if you pull back, there it is. And from here he says you can do all the things you can do from the other kind of denti cinghiaro. So posta denti cinghiaro, there's the middle version, and you can thrust, you can parry, you can enter with the front foot, a crescere, and return with a fendente, and so on. It's worth noting that if I'm in tutte porte di ferro facing this way, I am in kind of denti cinghiaro, rear weighted, or la mezzana, facing that way. And if I just turn, there's my denti cinghiaro, forward weighted, facing that way. Likewise, if I simply leave my left hand where it is and pass forwards, there's tutte porte di ferro, pass back, there's denti cinghiaro. Stable turn, here I am. So these guards are quite similar to each other, and very often the main difference is the direction of your intention. So the 12 guards in the order shown in the Getty manuscript are tutte porta di ferro, posta di donna destra, posta di finestra, donna alla sinistra, posta longa, porta di ferro alla mezzana, posta breve, posta denti cinghiaro, coda longa, bicorno, frontale, and posta di denti di cinghiaro alla mezzana. And if you move between all of these guards with various footwork actions, various blade actions and just play with it, you'll get a sense for how these guards form the waypoints of movement of the system. Every action you do will begin, pass through, and end in a guard. Begin, pass through, end in a guard. So, have fun with the 12 guards.